Hey, hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Overwatch developer live stream on maps, both voting, reworks,
I like the peanut butter.
new maps. Somebody, McBrown1010 asked in chat if this was live or if this was going to be pre-recorded.
It's live. Yeah.
So just there's your answer. There you go. It is live. Want to welcome all of you guys here.
I moved the
but also
webcam.
kind of
I
go
probably
through
not.
What we're doing
Let me
here,
try
what
something.
we're hoping to cover before we get into it. Really looking to do sort of like that deep dive into a specific topic. For today, obviously maps. Like I said, voting, reworks, new maps, and really get into the nitty gritty, not just like a high overview, but as much as we can cover with how we've developed these maps for season 17. So I really want to throw this over.
I can't move the
to,
chat, so just deal with it.
My friends here on the couch.
Yeah, what we're looking for is, you know, very like casual, sort of get into nitty gritty of some of the other things we're doing in season 17 and the mid-cycle, 17.1, and, you know, put kind of a nice focus on some of this stuff, you know, so we have George here today, one of our senior level designers, to talk through a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, so in addition to
There we
map
go.
voting, Alec will go over that a bit. I'll be going over our reworks of Suravasa
Ooh.
and New Junk City.
That's
and
gonna be
then
interesting.
Once we're done with those, I'll be showing you the new map, Atlas.
Right.
Atlas.
Before we jump straight into that, I'm gonna ask any particular games you guys are currently playing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting back into Street Fighter. There's
Nice.
a recent patch, so I've been getting back into that.
Oh, this
for,
is an
you know, later
Overwatch
this year.
stream? Are you serious?
And then Doom the Dark Ages. You know, there's actually one thing on the team we like to do.
You serious?
Every month we like to kind of gather and
In my
talk about
Overwatch
a
stream?
particular game, usually something that's within the genre, and talk about like, hey, here's some really awesome things they did, and the shield in that game is great. Yeah, so
Okay,
a lot of a really
okay.
good game feel.
Yeah, and I've been playing Elden Ring Night Rain and the Oblivion remaster, so
That sounds like a good
living it
combo.
up in Cyrodiil a bit.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm always OG Overwatch. I work on it during the day, and then in the evening, I'm either in stadium or in comp. Last week and a half since I've been here, haven't been able to play, and it's making me a little itchy. But yeah, so let's jump into maps here. We're gonna start with map voting.
I'm ready.
So I'm gonna throw this to you, Alec. Walk us through
That's
map
Megan,
voting.
yes.
Yeah, so just to start off, like, why are we adding map voting? We think overall Overwatch is a better.
But I think
experience
developers
to play on
complain
the
the
maps that you
same as
enjoy more
gamers
often.
when they play other games.
We also believe in, you know, adding.
The devs
tools
probably
to our
complain
game
about their
that
own
allow
games
the players
sometimes.
To sort of like
What do you mean?
show us what they love the most, right? So that's one of the things
Of course,
we've been
absolutely.
looking at with hero bands and now map voting. This has been in works for a little bit, and we think it provides a nice. One of the things we wanted to maintain with map voting though was that.
Yeah,
There's still
absolutely.
variety, you know, you're not just only playing King's Row every single time, even though that's probably going to win a lot of votes.
I agree.
Yep. Okay.
So we're still going to use our same old like map logic to actually populate what maps are going to appear in the voting itself. Yeah, and we think overall, you know, it's going to help influence things later on, like what sort of reworks we do, which maps our modes might need the most attention, you know, things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big requested feature on the community side. I believe we have. Do we have a little?
I think we have a little video.
Yeah,
just
okay.
go through the
We have a
flow
video
here.
chat.
You're gonna see actually like.
Look at
pretty
this
soon in
video.
Season 17. So normally there'd be 3 maps here. This is actually pulled from a playtest we had recently. We were actually playtesting the reworks for Suravasa, New Junk City. So you
That's
go
what this
through and
shows.
you'll see the votes populating. This is overall like the entire lobby, what they're voting on, that represented by those little ticks there.
I like this system.
And then you see the number of votes below that.
So far.
And actually the split of what your team is voting for, what the enemy team is voting for. You know, part of the thing we wanted to do with not only map voting but also hero bands is make these screens feel like social experiences. So that's why we want, like, the votes are popping in. You see what your team's going for.
I mean, I like
you see
the
enemy
UI.
team's going for. So there's like a little layer of strategy there if you know you want to make sure you're on the map that your team is actually wants the most, rather than being the odd one out. And then once you actually go through, you'll see all the votes come in, and then you'll see this roll through. So you can kind of play through that.
Okay.
See the roll through and how it actually decides which map you're going to play on. And normally, you know, this countdown, if all the votes are actually already in, it will actually just automatically.
So technically, New Junk City could still win here, though, right? It's like it's basically like
one
a.
of the other things, and you'll see like it's like
Yeah.
It's like one of those games you might play, you know, at some amusement parks or something.
That's
like that, where it
cool.
rolls
Yeah, I
through.
like that.
Boom,
Yeah,
boom,
yeah.
boom. we want to make this a very fun experience too. We want this to feel like, oh, there's something here that's like exciting for this moment. So it's not majority rules. It's actually, it's going to roll through and pick one of those votes.
Yeah, but I
So
think
if it
honestly,
is 9
Kobold, I would
votes
go in on like a
Kings Row,
game
there's
by
one
game
vote on,
basis
the
rather
rest
than
of
like
the
that
match.
game
We also-
specifically, because
it could
that's a
still
way
land on that
different
one.
vibe.
It's
That's a way different
so
vibe.
low, but it could happen. And we also want everyone to feel like their vote is impactful. Maintain that sense of variety as well.
That makes
That
sense.
seemed cool to me.
So,
I don't think
how
there's anything wrong with
how
that.
did the map voting idea internally start? How did we kind of come up with what we wanted?
It's one of those things we've talked about for a while, but in earnest, this project probably started with one of the things on the team we like to call Harvest Fest. So Harvest Fest is Overwatch's version of our own hackathon. And what happens
is that?
teams get together and they make a variety of different things for the game. Some of those things are much more like personal projects. Some things are a bit on the silly side, some hero prototypes and things like that go bonkers. And then there's some projects, though, that there's a group of people on the team that's like, I really want to see this in Overwatch. So I have 3 to 4 days to put something in front of the team that can help make this a reality. And then,
cool.
what we'll do actually, for the next few game check-ins and things like that, the team will all gather and we'll actually go through and people will present their ideas. It's a really fun experience over that end of the year as we're presenting all of those.
So map phone was
and
one.
one of those, I think this is 2023. Yeah, 2023 was map voting. So there's a group of people that were really passionate about
Wow, that was
map
years
voting.
ago.
And you can see this is the early UI of this. Actually show the enemy team too. We were thinking about doing hero bands and map voting in one screen at one point, and what that might look like.
Yeah.
But so you can see a lot of
You
the
said
stuff
Overwatch
from this
Classic
early
was
UI
one of
though,
those
from
experiences? Oh,
Justin,
really?
on our team actually ended up being in the real UI itself. So some of the changes over time.
That's cool.
We wanted to actually not have the enemy team there yet because that kind of flows into hero bands as well, where you won't see the enemy team.
I thought
until
Overwatch Classic
late.
was like what they
And
did with
we
World of
wanted
Warcraft,
to
where somebody just
keep it
found a
little bit
flash
cleaner.
drive and was
So
like,
there's
oh,
a
I
bit
found
more
WoW
space
Classic.
for
Okay, we're
everyone.
good.
Everyone on the right. You see some of the boxes here and
You
there.
know?
And then how did the voting tick?
Oh, yeah,
how did the
Workshop.
voting roll
They should do
through? What did
Workshop
it look
again.
like? So I think there's another screen here we have that'll show. There's actually some progress here.
Nice.
Yeah, we had some inspirations from some other games that have done similar things, but we wanted to keep it on one screen. This is still a really fun screen. I love this because it actually shows who
It was a
voted for
floppy
what,
disk?
and
My
it
bad,
represents
excuse me.
people on the map and kinda
My bad, my
visual
bad.
representation of it
I
all,
got you.
rather than there's a little bit of counting in your head in the current one.
Yeah.
But we wanted to keep
Man,
it
I'm
on
sure
one
they're
screen just
glad
to
they
make it flow a
found
little
that
bit
now.
Easier, but here's another prototype that we were doing.
Love this entire team on the bottom that just went all in on Kings Row.
Mario
Just
Kart, yep.
That's it. We're going Kings Row.
Yeah.
Governor,
and
thanks for the 50 months with the
we
Prime
went through
sub. Thank you.
iteration, and
Appreciate
I
it.
really love what the team did at the end of the day with the ticks because it just allows it to represents the vote, also represents how you're able to roll through it, and then keeps it on one solid screen. So we can make this as seamless as
Well, thanks to the tier
possible.
one. Thank you,
We
appreciate
want
it.
map voting
Thank you.
and hero bands to not add a ton of weight to your time before you get into the actual Overwatch match.
This is an older screen,
So
I think, right?
Obviously, we got a lot of data with hero bands that we've been through in our weekly recall blog previously. if
And
you're not
Chris,
already
thank you for the
checked.
Prime sub. Thanks, everybody.
But Lev, what are we looking at with map voting?
Yeah, so obviously we're going to see which modes and which maps are more popular than others. But I think what we're going to directly take from that is how does that influence what reworks?
Yeah,
do?
exactly.
Season 19, we're already getting started on some reworks for the end of the year.
Reworks, who is it?
You're working on some of those already, but we already
Thank
do
you, Cynic, for
surveys
the
that
15 months
influence
with the
that, but
Prime
this is more
sub.
like
Thank you.
Behavior in game, so it will be a little bit different to see how that results or compares to.
Yeah,
some
that
of
makes
the
sense with
surveys.
the prototype.
So
Heck yeah.
I would say that's if there's one thing you take away, I would want you to take away knowing that map voting is going to help us have data and understand what you like and what you don't like, and then we can go and we can have more reworks because we really want to keep updating our maps and levels
That's
in
good.
the future, and it's just invaluable data for us to get, so we know what maps we can kind of keep reworking.
That's good.
And pitting maps of the same mode against each other, I think is something everyone's always at least the group I play for, we love playing on Control. But I was like, okay, which maps in particular though? So yeah, I'm excited to see that all go live pretty soon. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And speaking of, I guess,
Cool.
your team or what maps you
And
like.
Rainbow Spoons,
how
thanks to
has
11
this-
months of
how
that
has the
tier
map
one. Thank you.
voting
Appreciate
been,
it.
received internally in our play tests?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we keep going back to it. Kings Row wins a lot.
Thank you, Infinity, with the 15
But
months
it's
of the
good
Prime
to
sub.
see sort of the split of who likes push on the team, who likes Flashpoint, who's actually more of a hybrid player in particular. Yeah, I think overall though, it's I think there's always this moment like in the lobby where people are in team chat, they're typing like, okay, let's vote for this, let's vote for this, and then you see the roll, and then it ends up on the one map that someone voted, just one person voted for. Like,
Oh, no.
who did that? But it's just a great time. I think there's, as I said,
9 votes Kings Row, 1 vote Dorado. It goes Dorado.
Creates a nice moment. For the teams.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to do map voting. Really excited for like 90% of my games to be on Kings Row. But as I'm sure most people in chat probably feel similarly. But now I'm going to jump it over. George, I want to chat with you because we're chatting Suravasa rework.
Ooh, okay.
Also new Junk City rework. So walk me through the philosophy that like you and the team had behind all of our like Flashpoint maps and Flashpoint reworks.
I'm
So
curious.
we really wanted to tackle
Arnie,
Suravasa
come
and
on.
New Junk City with our new map Atlas. We learned a lot of new things and just watching how people play and knowing that people don't like that. Like, unfortunately, people don't like the map and mode as much as we want them to, and so we are like looking at it, like really understanding what people want, like what we can improve upon. And so we're trying to make it just much more clear, like how people can get to points. So we have this philosophy of we want to make much more grand entrances. And so as you'll see, as we do the fly-throughs later on, everything's just much more in your face. It's much
Larger
easier to tell
entrances
where to
are good.
go. We want much less sneaking throughout the map. We just want you to know where to go, and we don't want you to get lost in the map. So we're really, really, really working on just making everything have much more clarity and minimizing everything. Just have players get to the point. We want you to fight on the point. And yeah, so basically, I can show when we do the.
That sounds like a
there's
good
lot
change.
of little like level design tricks and art tricks that we're doing to improve.
Dude, what's a
upon it.
treasure trade?
But
I don't even know what that is.
So going into the first one, like Suravasa, what were the important things on that map in particular compared to some of the others?
So we actually, for the most part, like how Suravasa
Discount
plays
on subs? Oh,
relative to
that's
New
random.
Junk City. For the most part, it's a map that people like more. And so essentially we changed, or I changed half the map. And so essentially there's a lot of awkward like nooks and crannies so people could kind of like split up from their team. There wasn't like clear, obvious paths. And so just simplified a lot of geometry, just made it much more clear where you're supposed to go. And then just removed a lot of line of sight blockers that would confuse players. And another thing we're trying to do is we want to increase the identity of each of the control points because sometimes things blend together.
Okay.
This
is
here's
before?
an example of a before and after shot we have.
Okay.
So for here in particular, this was a bad choke point that a lot of teams would fight at and die. And so it was really hard to push onto point here. And so one thing I did is basically I just opened it up. Just want to open it up
That's
more,
much better.
for the player. So we want you to get to point. We want
That's
you to
much
fight over
better.
there. I don't want you to fight right here.
Yeah.
And then also it's just nice because it frames the tempo much better.
Yeah, that's much
so
better.
There's things like this where it's just like it's much easier to see where you're going.
Yep.
Where
I'm still gonna
large
fall off the
POIs
map
are
right
in the
there, but
distance,
at least
that's
it's
what we're
beautiful when
trying
I
to
do,
push,
you know?
for these reworks.
Yeah, because you talked earlier about like, some of these scenes get broken down or they get shrunk so you can actually just see where the point is or the entrance to the point a lot more easily from far away.
Yeah, and so like this is an example of something that's just kind of in your way and people kind of can get, when they're moving around it towards point, people kind of get lost and people split up around it.
I don't get
and
lost.
This is right outside the spawn room. And so this is the before where you can't really see what's going on. And removed it and basically made a recessed area where it still has a decent line of sight covers to protect you. It's a little harder to
That's way different.
Spawn camp the spawn point, but essentially
I like that.
right
I like what
there
they're doing.
parallel with the pavilion, and essentially I angled it so it faces the spawn point. So right when you're leaving the spawn point, you know exactly like, oh, that's where it's going. It's like it's facing me. It's
Well, this
greeting
cover's a
me,
little bit different. This is near the spawn.
and you don't have to get stuck or split up. And so that's kind of like the philosophy of like I want you to see where you're going from like further away.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to like figure out where you are or where you're going like as you're running.
That makes sense,
The
though.
entrance to the
Yeah, that makes
ruins
sense.
point now just feels like a lot more attractive. It's like easier to point out. And also that health packs.
Yeah,
like,
that makes
way more
sense. I can see
accessible
that.
Oh, yeah.
too. So yeah.
Not gonna lie, I did not know there was a health pack there until this, like we've been going through this, and I'm like, oh, that's useful. I actually think we're able to kind of fly through the map so that we can kind of see a little bit more
Okay.
on the different things that you've changed. Fantastic.
So here's one of the spawn point entrances, and so this area, if you remember, there was like
I don't even know
big
where we're
old
at.
wall
This is
right there.
a
And
slow
so basically,
camera
we still
pan
needed
over.
that line of sight blocker, like kind of just made a stepped wall. And this area right here used to be this big, chunky. square
Oh,
building
okay.
that
I
had,
know
like,
this
a
spot.
door
Wow, that
you
looks
could go
nice.
to, and then there was like you like sneak around it, and so people would kind of get split up and like stuck in here. And
Yeah, so
if
they're
you're
making it
coming
easier.
from the ruin
I
point
see what
and
they're
going to
doing.
the palace, people would split up from each other. So just really wanted to simplify this.
Yep.
It's important that we have
The starting
a line of
point,
sight
yeah, yeah.
blocker here,
Mhm.
just so you don't get shot from really far away, and then just for
I
memory.
appreciate that.
Yep.
Like the further you see in the game, like the worse it
That's
is for
the-
memory in your computer. So
Yeah, that's way better.
stuff like that's really important. So essentially, just wanted to simplify this, make a single wall, and then I framed it with the trees that kind of incentivize, like, hey, just go through here. This is like,
Yeah, you lead
it's
people in the
simple,
right
like,
direction so that way they're actually
access
playing the
go
map the
through.
way it's meant to be played. Yeah, I get it.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
And then the trees are nice too because they act as like line of sight blockers.
That makes sense.
From the sides.
Oh,
Before
nice.
we used to actually just have like a big, huge wall right to the left here,
Mm-hmm.
and by making it stepped, it feels like a little more organic and you can see beyond it a little bit. But to compensate for it, basically like we
You're
added
new here, but
trees.
old to Overwatch? No
Yeah, I
worries.
love how
Welcome.
It's just a lot easier just to use
Watching some
mobility
dev
right
stream?
off spawn too. Like,
Yes.
you know, rather than having like snake through, if you have like just straight line mobility, it was like I didn't get the most out of that. But yeah, this wall getting knocked down just, I mean,
Yeah.
as you said, like now you can see where the entrance to the
I
other
go
point's
left
gonna
door
be.
or
It's just a
right
lot
door?
easier to- don't
Well, I
think
write
people
with my
really
left hand. I
even
throw
know
a
that's
baseball with my
area
left
right
hand,
now,
so usually I
like, on
default
live
that
as
way
much,
just
or they don't
because.
visualize as much as we like me.
Because I'm like a lefty.
Because like it's just hard. You don't really put your head over to the left or right when you come right out of spawn. You kind of just
You
go
just
forward because it
focus.
has that wall there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little bit big to see over.
And so if we go to this corner over here, this is what we talked about a little bit before with the pavilion. Remove that, just like angle that wall to look at you.
You're left-handed
brought up the
too?
door frame,
Let's go.
and then added that glow to it. So it's just like much more like, hey, this is the point. This is where you go. Because what would happen often as well in our playtests and just seeing what players do is when we had the pavilion here, people wouldn't use the side entrance to go to the ruin point. They would
Okay.
actually go all the way down to the market and then use that entrance over there. And that was like a longer run through. Or sometimes they go through that little door. And so basically we wanted to show players like, hey, this is like the closest.
You asked
way
Flats
to
a
the point. And we
similar
really wanted to incentivize that.
question yesterday, but
one
what
thing
game
that,
do I
you
think
know,
is
if you
worth
look at the
playing
point
ranked
right now,
more?
like,
That's
you
up
can
to
see
you.
there's
I
a-
mean,
there's
I love
vines
Overwatch,
there
so
in
Yep.
particular, right?
play what you
so
enjoy.
Go over to
I think
the
that's the most
point.
important part.
Oh, yeah, there's a new little flanking route over there I added as well. But yeah, we wanted to, basically people confuse these points a lot, like this and the blue temple.
Yes, that's true.
The other one was temple, this one was ruins, and so
Stream
basically
volume?
wanted to really
There you go,
push
is
the
that better?
ruin feeling. Like, again, this is like still a work in progress, but we wanted to just bring a lot
Push
more
to talk, my side mouse button.
vegetation and vines in here. And just kind of give it like a much stronger identity. Like there's a really cool like tree kind of growing on the rooftop.
No, yeah, I've
and-
been looking at all the roots coming down.
yeah.
It is so cool.
But the thing too with
phone
the
ripped
tree though is like people don't look up. Like in every game, people just don't look up. So it's just one of those things where it's like a nice little detail that was like lost on players. So just
Straight
kind of-
ahead.
So just bringing it down for like line of sight for players.
And if you kind of get a glimpse of there, if you actually go into the point itself, there's like water here now, so it definitely has that like feeling of this
So
has been
cool.
sort of abandoned.
So you get
in
Galactic
somewhere,
for
like, it's-
Oh my god.
a Yari
Overgrowth.
or Jade for
Yeah.
Torb. That's up to you.
And
Whatever you
then
play the
one
most
thing
of.
that I love,
Whoa, what the?
Basically, we added a platform right there.
I'm gonna have wet
like,
socks
the
now?
stairs. The stairs was just a huge death trap for people.
That looks really
You would
cool.
Just go down it and just get blasted. And basically, we just wanted to have people use this this route a little more and not be forced to the sides. And so you have like a little
said
bit of cover
Sigma-
at the
a
comms
Sigma
here,
win?
and so it's just nice to kind of get in there and have a little protection. Or if you're like defending the point, it's kind of nice to just kind of get that little high ground right there as well. So it just adds like new rotation to this point that I think plays out pretty nicely.
Love that.
Here we go.
Yeah, this one's played out really well.
I like that.
also
I actually
love
like the way
you
that
did
looks
sort
now.
of
I'm actually
being
kind of-
off this point though. Say you win this point.
Good changes so
there's
far.
A new route that actually takes you to the next point over here on the left. It's like cave entrance.
Yep.
What?
Added,
okay,
added a
okay.
little cave flank point here.
Does this go from
So
spawn?
to
Does
go
it
between
connect?
The ruins and the temple point, you had to go back to the central market and then back to the
Oh!
temple. But between the gardens and the palace point, there was a cut through similar to
I
this.
like
So
that.
we
That's
wanted to
really
kind
good.
of, mirror that.
That was
to the side.
necessary because you always get stuck there and
It's more
lost.
of a flanky route because it's like it's pretty tight. And you have two ledges next to you, so you can kind of get booped off. So we don't want.
Yeah, I like that. I like
too
that.
Strong, and so you're still kind of.
These are good
at
changes.
risk
These are
of
more than I
being thrown
expected.
Off the map a little bit if you're taking the shortcut. But yeah, this has been a this has been really.
And this is a good sign, because if map bans mean they're willing to rework and the reworks look like this, that's a good sign for Overwatch, because they can update their maps to make them much better.
Earlier,
You know what I mean?
I think the point itself.
That's a really good change.
In terms of the trim being brought down, those details. Right?
Yeah. So in addition to level design changes, for our artist basically did a pass on. There's a lot of little details that I'm sure there's a bunch I forgot.
You know what I say to that, Joe? Just be proud of the ranks that you're getting, and don't like
improve some art that
overthink that part of it. You know?
Like if you see some of the symbols, like
just enjoy ranked.
Silver diamonds. A lot of
have fun with it.
At the way top.
Don't worry about the competitive integrity of that. Just have fun with what makes you happy.
It's like, why are you going to look up if you need to like worry about everybody on the ground?
So like all the Pharah players and Mercy players.
This is coming from an overthinker, so.
And so just
I'm good at giving that advice, but not actually taking it. So okay, sound good?
Easier. And they just kind of updated some of the trim and some of the art. So there's a bunch of little like surprises like that through here and New Junk City as well, where they just like change up the art a little bit.
And what about fighting on this point or some of the routes, that are some new?
It seemed like they wanted to make the map better while also making it look better,
other than the
which is a win-win.
Is the same, except for at the entrances where I showed earlier, where everything was kind of widened up. So if you go towards the corner gate and look towards the point,
I'm loving this. This is great.
There's a little flanking route.
It's kind of peeking right there with the lighting, right?
Yeah, that's nice. Because you have more spots, so you don't get stuck at chokes.
Side as well.
These changes go live mid-season, I think, of next season.
Go towards the main,
so like
gate
August
and look towards the point.
Or mid-July, late July, or early August.
Widened up a bit. Like the stairs have been pushed back, and. Yeah, it's just this.
Like, it's how I deal with rank anxiety if I ever get it.
Widen it up for players.
Practice, more experience. That's usually with me. The more experience I get at something, the less I have of it.
One thing here, if we just go forward, you used to this would be a lot of interference right here. Like people would like kind of hold you. It's kind of hard to get through because I mean even the round the right was pretty congested.
I really like this.
That's a little bit more opened up too. So how's this played out?
I think it plays way nicer. Like one of our philosophies is when people get stuck in these chokes.
I think it's mid-season next season. I could be wrong. Maybe it's at launch, but I thought it was mid-season. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
We don't really like that. It doesn't feel great, especially if the defending team has the point and they're getting percentage points. And
I'm excited to see Atlas now because Atlas. Remember Runasapi? How Runasapi's a really fun map, and they learned from all their other push maps. I'm now excited to see how Atlas is because Atlas might play really well because they learned so much from these.
It's brought up just a little bit, so people can't shoot you from point. And so we
because Runasapi's where they learned everything from the previous push matches, and they said that like we learned a ton. This is what we made.
And level design is like. Especially for Flashpoint maps, I'm like 101.
Yeah, Atlas is out at launch.
Points.
Yep.
But then by doing that, you have a lot of long line of
sight.
So it's like a little push.
Also, Chad, there's going to be an ad timing coming up in a little bit. Not yet, but I know it will happen. So
from opening up,
this is also on the dev stream. So for some reason you want to keep like watching it uninterrupted on that, it will be there, or my YouTube stream stuff. I just want to let people know. Right.
Were you
Play Overwatch.
trying to solve for?
Giving people the pre-warning because I know it will happen soon.
Obviously, chokes, movement, trying to keep people from. Or keep people from fighting off the point, so you're actually fighting on the point.
Yeah.
Are there other challenges that you guys were running into?
Yeah, like we still want people to have fights on the way to point. So that's what, like for this the recessed area here, we still
for sure
wanted to create like a fun little area you can fight around. You have things to
YouTube,
rotate around and things like that. But we want you to be able to ignore that and get from point A to point B as fast as possible. Okay. And so it's just finding creative solutions of how do we get there
I mean, this is great.
quicker and not have to snake and move around things, and how do we prevent teams from splitting up? And because before, one of the biggest things for this point was people would go through that little door to the left, they'll go to the right, some people go past this, towards the market, and so basically just kind of pointing teams and like, hey, this is the route you should be taking.
This is where you should be going. This is foolproof. I appreciate that.
They changed the tunnel right here too.
To the left here outside of it, one of the other things I really love about
the lighting, I think,
Suravasa is a lot of these structures are just lower now.
Yeah.
And then the archways or some of the details of them are higher, so you actually know where you're going from a distance, right?
Yep. So this essentially this pillar used to cover the doors entirely of the market. So if you were by spawn, you couldn't really see the doors, or if you're coming from the garden, you couldn't really see the temple door. So basically, pulled it all down so it still acts like a...
New Junk City does have reworks. They're showing New Junk City after this.
Brought it down, and then for the entrances,
just so you know,
they're the same size. except for those arches have been pulled.
Like New
all the
Junk
way
City's
up,
also getting
and then we
changes.
added that like neon light
After
so
they're showing it after
far
this,
away.
and then they're showing Atlas.
And we did the same thing for both the ruin and the temple entrances. Basically brought everything up. You can see from further away. That was our biggest thing. Is that people would often get stuck in the alleyways, and we didn't
Ad
want
time
people
is
to
in
get
10
stuck and
seconds,
lost
chat,
in
just so you
alleyways
know,
and stuff.
pre-warning.
Just
And
making
so, like I said, there's
everything
just,
like
in case you want to keep
much,
seeing that
like,
stuff,
have much
just it's
more
gonna pop
clarity
up. So
to
I
it.
can,
Not just having to use like
I paused
the
it a few
global,
times,
like,
but I think
in-world
it's that.
waypoints to get
Yeah.
to the points. Like, oh no, here's like a here's where you are. Here's where you need to go.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go on to market.
These are map remakes. Yep.
Let's go inside.
So, I've always thought this point plays out pretty good in terms of like there's some high
No
grounds
idea. I'm
here,
sorry,
people
Velks.
get to wrap around. Any new additions to this one in particular?
Yeah, well,
The music?
For this one didn't want to make too many changes to it. One thing I did though is if you go to the side and look at the boxes.
The boxes.
The boxes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Added some boxes.
I like that.
for people to
Clean,
jump up
a new
on.
entrance.
So you can get
That
to
looks
point,
good.
You can get up on point now without having to go onto
That looks good.
the staircase. Which it's funny because like sometimes the smallest change is like the biggest change, if that makes sense.
No, it's a good-
Where
it's a
this is
good
gonna, like, change up the flow
opportunity to go back in, yeah.
There. Because
I
normally
like
you
it.
could just
That's good.
like stay up on point, and if they don't have like high mobility heroes, you can just like hang out by the staircase and just.
That's a
kinda
great
keep people
change, yeah.
off. But now it gives brawlers and heroes like that options to get up there, which as a Rhine main, I want to get up there.
I like hearing their philosophy
It
on
felt really good.
Yeah.
I like that.
their maps. They definitely are like in tune with why these maps need to be
Notice
shifted, which is
the
nice to
thing
hear.
about the front entrance here
I'm going to
Yeah.
assume those boxes aren't
It's,
breakable. That's my guess.
with changing from having like high ground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Walk me through some of that.
This is
yeah, this one's
different.
interesting because there's a little bit of high ground here, and so
I can
basically
wave
in
at people
old
through that
iterations,
wall.
We try to make the high ground work, but if you remember, there used to be a bunch of boxes that were like
Yeah,
awkwardly
scuffed.
placed, and there are boxes because there's not much room around here to give players
Yeah.
clearance to jump up to a second layer, and basically we didn't really like how players were playing on it. It was
Okay.
kind of like some people like having that space and others don't, but at the end of the day, there's just kind of awkward fights that would happen out front, and so we wanted to just kind of simplify it all a lot and to get people onto point and have people focus on having fights at point a lot more than worrying about people up on the high ground.
Cool.
So I know we've got 2 other maps, but I really want to talk about some of the stuff that changed in on the Palace point because we were talking about this earlier, and this point is super cool. So.
Yeah, so for this one, this is nothing really changed for this from a level design standpoint, but this is an example of art coming in and kind of doing a pass over things. They added a lot more gold trim to the palace because they wanted it to feel much more like a palace. Cool. Like it used to be kind of like a beat up old fountain in the center there now, and it has like a gold flower. I think you called it an egg earlier.
Basically changing the
it's not
vibe of
an
each
egg
point
at
so you
all.
know
I-
each point's different.
Gold egg.
Was from a distance, yeah, no,
yeah.
that is definitely not an egg.
Yeah, so
That makes sense.
just, like, they
It's
should've
like basically
wanted to kind
changing
of,
the point to have a
sell
different
the
feel.
Palace feel a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Comes through.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
And
They-
if
they-
we
No, this
go
point's
to
already
the
always played well.
entrance and
This
look at the
point didn't
wall,
need much
I like
change,
the
in my
wall.
opinion.
It's cool.
It didn't need much change.
Yeah,
Oh,
they,
yeah.
they added
Oh,
this.
God.
Like it's just like
It's just
little
basically
details like
saying
this
you're
that
going to a
just,
new
like,
part of the map.
Added a nice, really cool
Yeah.
like material to it to make it pop.
Yeah,
a
like
lot more than
small
what
things
we
like that are cool. I mean,
Yeah,
if you're
well,
going to
the
redo the whole map,
like
you might as
grand
well redo the
entrances,
whole
not
map.
just on the point
Yeah.
itself,
Like,
having those details
you know, and making it look good
make
across
more
the board,
thematic,
right?
but
You don't want to
you
like
know
go and
from far away. It's like
recreate
that's
the other
point.
points, but not add like some
It
fine
looks
like
so much
detail to the other ones, you know? So it's a good idea.
that visual identity per point,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I'm excited to get to Atlas later, so we can show people the culmination of our grand entrances.
Fantastic.
Well, some of the points they don't have to
fantastic,
change a
teaser.
ton on. They just change
And
some of the
also just to
scenery.
call it one last thing with this last point, because I know Suravasa is one of the more liked on our Flashpoint maps.
Yep.
You were saying this one very light.
I wouldn't change
Secondly,
anything
on
about
this
this point.
point-
This point's good.
Yeah, we didn't change this point.
Oh, okay. So not the lightest of light, as
We
in
like- we
no,
like- we
no
like
touch.
this
Yeah,
one.
there's good
There's
point
nothing wrong
crowds,
with that.
got,
This
like,
point's
the extra
fine.
if you wanna boop
This is one of the
anybody
better
off.
points
Yeah,
of
we-
We
Suravasa.
like this. Like this actually has a really,
In
like,
my
this is
opinion.
a good example of this has like a really strong
Yeah.
visual identity. Like people know what this map, like this.
Yeah,
point
you
is.
know where this
The
point
temple,
is. You
though,
know how
it's,
to
like,
get to the
kind of tied
point.
together.
You
So
know
we
where you're
just wanted
going.
to
This
do that
is
to
not an
make everything
issue.
Have like a much stronger identity. Like
it's one of those
in
don't fix
general
what isn't
for all of our
broken things,
points,
right?
so we're trying to
You know what I
push
mean?
that a lot.
The other points needed work. This one did
and
not.
A lot of that too is just like communication.
Right.
And if people are like, hey, let's go to the temple point, and there's like
This is cool. I like it.
temples. Yeah, so we're trying to like solve that a bit by making everything feel very different for all the Flashpoint maps in general.
Yeah.
Very cool. There was one point that we didn't touch on in the philosophy earlier. So I think we're also exploring some logic changes to which Flashpoint.
Did they made the lattice on the side more see-through? I can't.
Yeah, so
I couldn't tell you. Maybe they did, but I couldn't
like,
tell you.
It's a highly contested mode, and there's a lot of like people feel like it's unfair with some of the run back times or just how the logic's chosen. So we're trying something different. It's a work in progress still, but essentially how the logic works is if you win, so whoever wins the first central point, the second point will be loser favorite side, and then after that we're getting rid of diagonal.
It's like crossing through the middle.
Yeah, crossing through the middle. So basically what it'll do is it'll randomly choose between adjacent points, and then it'll kind of keep doing that. And so we were getting rid of a little randomness from it.
Yeah, it sounds more predictable.
You'll be able to predict it a little bit more,
Yep.
but we're just like testing it out a lot, and we feel like this feels a lot better than having the diagonal run across.
The 300-meter run back there.
From
Yeah.
one end of the map to the
I need to see how it would play, but it
There's
might
always, like,
play
a straggler
well.
on your team, right?
Right.
Like, they get caught. They're an Ana. They're behind you.
Yeah,
They don't want you going
a lot of
300 meters
research
across
and,
and like traveling
like,
there and then
looking
not
at
even be able to
players
play
how
the game.
A lot
Yep.
of issues people would have is like, for instance, like
What if you have a
like
speed
all
boost
players,
comp and the
but
other
some
team doesn't?
players would. I don't want to call. I'm not calling anybody out.
It's fine.
But,
It's fine. You can call me out. It's fine. It's fine.
But sometimes you get you win a point and then a diagonal point would unlock, and then some of your team would go one way. Basically, people would like split up into 3 groups, which we don't like. We want people to kind of stick together. And then sometimes people, even though we have a giant light,
He's in a 3. Yeah, I'm waiting for my dad to get here. I'm gonna go check with Lonnie. Be back 1 second, chat.
Directly across the forward spawns, and then get killed, and then your team yells at you, and then we're basically like we're just trying to like reduce that a bit, and we think the removing the diagonal runs helps a lot.
I love it. Let's jump into New Junk City because I know that there was quite a bit of changes on this map.
Okay, New York City is kind of a beast.
All right, chat.
Where did you start? What were the
I do
problems
need
you
to
were
hop off.
identifying
Don't
early
hate
on?
me.
This is a
Because
I'm
I'm going to the movies, so I need to.
Like, no surprise.
So I'm gonna
like,
watch
people's least
like
map.
I'm gonna
So
raid
basically,
Beaver
we
pretty
sat down,
quickly here,
Really looked at it,
and then you can keep watching
so
it from
much of
Beaver's point of
Suravasa,
view.
a lot of it's
All
just
right,
like,
I know.
we're
I'm
just trying
sorry.
to-
We'll watch the rest of it tomorrow. I
But
have
players
I
know
have
they are, 'cause
plans.
one
I
of the
have to
biggest
do it.
things
I'm
is just, like, you
sorry.
get lost so
Okay,
easily in this-
let's do it.
That we can pull up here.
Yeah, we'll do the before and afters. Yeah, so
Yeah.
here's an example.
So tall.
Yeah. Here's an example of like when you spawn, you get out of the spawn point. You have the hammer mill main path is around the corner, but again, it's just like you can't see where you're supposed to go, and like the walls are so high.
Yeah, you don't
that
know
people
where this
actually
leads
get
to.
Lost
Yep.
around here by spawn, which is we didn't find ideal.
This is
like,
the
we
first
want you to
spawn,
know
right?
Exactly where you are, and sometimes people would get lost where. Like, which side of the map was I on? Like, am I on my side of the map or am I on the enemy side of the map if they're by these buildings? And part of that too is just like you don't have any like POIs or like focal points in the distance or in the sky to look at, and so
If somebody doesn't know what a POI is.
point of interest.
Fantastic.
So just like a big object that you can follow. And so
Whoa.
yeah, so
Big difference. Oh my
just-
god.
That's way different.
I just chopped off a bunch of the rooftops.
Yeah, that's way different. I like that.
And so, because like the new bomb flats point right there, it has a really
It's like a
cool
much wide open,
big
and you can
bomb.
kind of see where you need to go.
But the thing is, like, we couldn't
like
really
that.
see it because the buildings are too tall. So it's just really like I want you to see where that is. Just really want to just like reduce some of the size
Stream,
of
yep.
these buildings.
There you go.
Added a
Volume
door
is
there
weird to
that's,
this one.
Like, so because
It was
before
like
you had to run
80%.
around the building, which was a little awkward. So
There you go.
had a little cut through there.
Lucky, buddy.
And if we can go to the next slide.
Bye.
So the points or the
yeah.
entrances to the point should be the tallest thing, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
this
the thing.
is
we want the
point
points
with
to be
that
tallest,
ramp.
but then they're
that make
competing with
sense?
Some of the other side buildings that were just as tall. And then here's an example of like a grand entrance we made. Well, the before. Essentially, when you got to this point, it's just kind of confusing. Like you don't really know where you're supposed to go here.
There's a lot of entrances.
There's
Yeah,
a lot of,
so-
it says
sometimes
ducks in a
peop-
lot of spaces.
Yeah, people go to that little, like where that little health pack is there.
It's
like
ducks.
The sewer point as well, where people go in there thinking it's an entrance, but it's just a health
my
pack,
water,
and then they
dude,
go
I'm
back
stupid.
out. And the problem with this point is there's like 3 entrances right here, and nobody knows what's on the other side of it. Like you can't really tell what's going to happen until you go in there, for better or worse. So if you can go to the next slide.
Whoa.
Just like wait,
Yeah,
just made it wait.
That's a different map.
These are so cool.
What the heck?
Yeah, I like the fans. Yeah,
That's way better because it's
When you
open
said, "Hey,
space
I'm
now,
making
so you can
grand
like
entrances,"
actually.
You really said
you're not
"I'm
going through
making grand
chokes.
entrances."
Yeah, like we had the problem before. People are like they couldn't tell the difference between the ducts and the sewer sometimes because it's just all like, scrap metal.
Yeah.
And it would. I mean, it's New Junk City. That's who they
I
are.
like that.
That's
That's
their
awesome.
aesthetic. But it's just hard to differentiate what's what. So like updated a lot of like you can kind of tell here like just like push the colors a lot more. Gave it a grand entrance. And this one was really interesting too because for a while I was kind of like hitting my head against the wall of like, hey, how can I? What would happen is people get in big fights.
Yep,
right
I like
outside
that.
The right outside the entrance or like at the entrances, and we're just having trouble. Like we call it staging areas
DB.
where you're basically going up to a point and your team posts up and you kind of have a fight before you get onto a point. But what would happen on this point is there'd be 2 staging areas. So basically, everybody push up to a point, have a big fight, and then push up again to the point and then kind of have another fight.
That makes sense.
And so I was having trouble kind of figuring out what to do because essentially for the old like.
I like that though.
I can go through this in the flat.
I agree. It's very much like easier to know where the maps are too, like the
just got really good
spots.
feedback from my teammates about like, hey, why don't you just like chop off a chunk of the building and make it outside? Because the thing is, we just kept having too many spots indoors for players to push.
This is way more open now.
Yeah.
If we have less indoors, there's less fights indoors. That makes sense.
It's true.
Oh yeah, and this is another change we did. Like I was saying before, is like that door down there. You're like, that's the main entrance.
Okay, so this is the refinery.
It's a
See how this one looks.
So even though like I played the game a million times, I would go in
Very
there.
deceiving.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, oops, that's not the right way.
Oh, the little health pack underneath.
And
Yep.
So, yeah.
Oh, I
just-
like that
again,
way better.
We were just pushing the colors. We're pushing.
It's so much more obvious
the
now.
Goo, we called it. I don't know canonically what it is. Their fuel. I'm guessing. I just call it the goo.
Miranda, tell us later.
Yeah.
You know what it feels like? It
Miranda
feels like
update,
each
but-
point is like its own map now, which is exactly what you need to
That would be
do.
wrong.
That's a good way to go about it.
I hope not, because we added a lot of it.
Okay, great.
But we, yeah. So we really pushed the identity of each point. And
That's a
just
good
made
idea.
these great
They did a good job with
entrances. And yeah.
Let's jump in and see and do like a quick fly through
Okay.
on some of these points.
I'm ready.
And see what we can see.
See what we can see. I like that.
So we're at that first point of the spawn right now, right?
Yeah.
Right outside of it. So you know everything's cut down, like you said.
Yeah, so everything's cut down, just like made everything streamlined and just easier for you to get
Yeah, I like
closer
that.
to the points.
That's good.
So here's one of the.
I love this area now, George.
Yeah, so this is one of the changes you made.
Ooh.
Essentially, there used to be a
I
hole
love
here,
that.
and so there's actually a lot of vertical depth, and it was really interesting because I actually like that area in the.
It feels like they made the
micro,
maps
a
just
low
cooler,
time. I'm like,
too.
Oh, it's a really interesting, like visually aesthetic space, except for
Yep.
it just the way it played out is people kind of got caught in there, and then it just took people a while.
So they
to
got
get
rid
to
of
the
like
point
that
where
high ground,
people
low
were
ground
safe
spot.
here, and nobody ever
got
used the
stuck.
entrance to the bomb flats to the left. Like nobody, or if you could rotate the other way, thank you. Like nobody would ever go over here, and so basically we're like,
Yep.
well, we want people to use this area,
Bombs.
and then also a lot of people didn't know there's a giant bomb above the point, and so we just put a bunch of bombs. We're
Yep.
just, it was kind of funny because we're like, I had a lot of gray box geo, and I'm like talking to artists like, oh, I don't know what we should have here, like these bombs right here to the left.
Yeah, yeah. I
These
like
should be
this.
boxes. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure. Like in my head, I'm like, oh, it's just gonna be like little houses or something.
Just to pause
then-
for
oh,
a
no
second.
problem.
One thing I've noticed what they're trying to do, and I think it's really important for Flashpoint, is basically make it so like I could say, hey, we're going to the next point is at this, and you know exactly what that means. In current Flashpoint, some of the maps, and Suravasa has the issue too, where like on the, you know, the side with like, I'm trying to think of the side. It's the one towards like the coast side of that map. Like not the one that's like the points are pretty good, Palace and all that, but the other side. It was like you get stuck, you get lost, and they fixed that. That was what they showed previously. So the vibe I'm getting now is they're opening up chokes to make it so it's not choke heavy, which was a 2CP problem back in the day. Or like just in general, chokes can cause problems there. And then they make it so each point is so definitive that you know where you're going. So like I like that.
Bombs. Like what about more bombs? Okay.
I just needed to pause and bring that up. I like that part.
I mean, this is like a Junker map. I feel like somewhere Junkrat was very excited about that visual direction. More bombs.
But a change we did for this map was we kind of just made these like big stacked bombs.
Yep. I mean they really went all out with that one.
Is we used to have like little shops there, and I brought that where it's recessed or that on the sides of the map. I actually brought it up like 1 to 2 meters. Like if you can go to the side a little bit.
Where is it? Oh, I see. Yeah.
Over here. So basically, like these recessed areas used to be 1 or 2 meters lower. Like actually, I think
so it was like a good reset spot.
This floor closer to you.
I like that.
And so what happened was, people would be at the high ground at the main entrance, and then you would actually be really, really far vertically from the opposing team, and so there actually be like weird fights that happen here. Like they're like so basically pulled up a little bit. It's still recessed. You're just much.
There's more cover
vertically from each other. And you can see everything a little bit more. Like
the vibe I get from this is that you can, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the right side of that, you can now rotate. See, like a lot of Flashpoint maps are like, you just basically slam your face into the point. Changes like this allow for you to go, okay, step by step to take a point. And I think that could make Flashpoint very interesting. Also, I don't know if anybody else heard the what they said yesterday, and it kind of fell under the radar. But in Flashpoint, they're making it more consistent. So you know how like sometimes you'll have to go like 300 meters across the map? They're getting rid of some of the RNG so it becomes more predictable. It's not like fully predictable because you have to sometimes guess between the points, but it's not going to make you go diagonal across the map 300 meters and like not have a good... So they're changing how Flashpoint plays a little bit too. So that could make it a better... Again, I don't know how it's going to play overall, but it could make it much better and more predictability on it. So you can kind of like set up for team fights better. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Like everything is kind of like because of that the lower area, it was hard to see everything.
What about the cover on this point? It feels like there's some. You changed that up a little bit, or?
There was a lot of cover.
Or is it just the aesthetic that's like throwing me off now?
No, there's definitely cover.
I think they might have changed the colors. Oh, also
the middle thing right there.
The cover. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just the sides right here, and then probably made like there's like little things too. Like I probably like made tweaks to the walls or kind of push things out a little bit. But the point.
Am I losing it, or is that giant thing in the middle right there like new? Am I just not remembering New Junk City? Is that giant like cover piece new? Because like that's getting like overshadowed here. They're like, yeah, like no, there's not much new. I'm like, there's a giant line of sight thing in the middle. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Itself is
that's a good cover spot.
Like the center point. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but we got rid of a lot of trash and junk. Because we just had like a ton of sand and
no, there was a wall closer to the door, but like
we got feedback that people are like, this
I'm saying they redid how that plays. Yeah,
I don't know where I am. Okay. I don't like looking at it, and so like for this point, we just like reduced a ton of the sand, just kind of made it much more plated. Just like to simplify like the game space as you're like running around it.
And how is it played? This point in particular.
I think it plays pretty well.
Imagine if he was like terribly. He's like, yeah, it still sucks.
We don't have like that vertical difference anymore, which was like one of the more awkward spots.
Like, yeah, it just sucks. We can't do anything anymore. It's just, yeah, it's terrible.
Which is nice because before it used to be the side entrances only, which we wanted to fix.
I think I thought the side entrances were the main entrance, and the main entrance was the side.
Yeah, it's still trash. Just you can't do anything about it. No, it looks way better. I mean,
even though there's like
kind of feels like a new map almost, but not really. Right? Like you know where you're going, but you're like navigating way differently than you used to. Cool.
Yeah, it definitely didn't get as much play as those sides.
Let's jump to another point because I want to hear more on like what you've done with some of these other points.
Yep.
Let's go to the junkyard.
Heck yeah.
All right. Can you actually go to like the side entrance?
Oh yeah, this is much more open.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this was a huge.
That's way better.
Here, and essentially, like I was saying,
because like you had like this much room. Yeah, you had like this much room in there. That's way better.
No, it's in there.
Okay.
There's so many like little details I miss sometimes. But if you look down a little bit, so this area right here where the tarp is. Was a huge choke point for players. Like basically fights would just be dictated right here. And so just push that out a ton, made it like a lot less choky for players. And also right there, part of it too was there.
I like
is,
that.
I'm pointing, but yeah, you probably.
The live stream was cool to watch. Yeah, I mean, I missed this because I had to go yesterday before, but like this is great.
I added a ramp so you can actually go to that middle point because before there used to be like if you
look how much better this looks now. So like the way it used to work is that one, you get stuck in this little choke here. Like you had like you barely could get through there, right? You're like, okay, it's like you're like driving like a semi truck through there, and you're like, okay, it's close, but we're getting through. Now there's more space to work with. I've always talked about how like chokes are I get they exist because they have to in the game, but like sometimes they would go too heavily on that, right? These are coming mid-season, these changes. And it would be like I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. It's like you just get stuck on chokes, and like 2CP was designed that way. Even like if you look at like King's Row, like first to second, like very choke heavy, right? Things like that. I love King's Row, by the way. I'm just kind of pointing out like where chokes are. So like open up the space there, but also like over here. Remember that little bridge area where once again you had like no space? Look at it now on the right side. It looks so much better. Like they're gonna show it here in a second, but like look at that.
So you can actually come down here and rotate on the point and rotate around the space. Before it used to be a drop off, and so essentially
this is way better.
Commit by dropping off into the middle.
It gives you more map to work with.
People don't, it's dangerous to do it.
Yep.
So basically, just kind of adding these ramps in here.
To approach that, you had to like if someone was on that high ground, you had to like burn like an ability, movement ability or something to get up there, right?
Yeah. So you can just rotate around this whole area like a lot nicer. And then the high ground, it didn't see a lot of play that much. Like to the
bridge.
Yeah. There. Nope.
No, this high ground's normally played. This one. Yes.
So it was kind of an awkward space. There's two big ramps that used to be there, like really, really big, and so basically teams didn't want to come through the main entrance and go.
You wish they showed the before and after this one.
You felt
if you load into New Junk City right now, you'll see how much different it is. Like this used to be a bridge area that was very
just simplified
small
it,
corridor,
a little bit of high ground, one ramp down the middle, and it's just you have a lot more options to kind of rotate around.
So much more clean.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Yeah, because it was one of those, like just like the new bomb flats, just want people look.
The Battle Pass tier skips don't work with the prestige level, but they'll stack the next season, so you'll get like 5 levels already.
This point's been a lot of fun to play in playtests. Just being able to get on the point a lot more easily, not being able to
just not getting stuck in chokes. Exactly.
I really love. Speaking of grand entrances, the hammer mill. It's just a lot more noticeable now too to our left.
Oh yeah.
It's like boom, that
the sign
feels like it's more distinct.
Yeah, kind of pops. Kind of reminds me of the StarCraft logo.
Basically, people very, very tight. Another example of
good open door there.
A lot wider than
I love that.
And if you can go into the door, Katie.
I love that. Oh, it's so much better.
It's way bigger.
Yep.
Door to left, bigger. Wall on the other side.
Because you used to have team fights in this room, but like it was like half the size of this. Like think about New Junk City, like on the first team fight, like when you go to the middle, like this was like half the size of what this room was. So yeah, you still have a choke here, but you have more room to work with. I like that.
The pipe, bigger, like all the walls.
Yep.
Pushed it out. Just a lot more space in here for you to get in and out. And yeah, just gave you a lot more space. So basically you wouldn't get trapped in there as much.
Yeah, everyone's been in there just like just like very claustrophobic at times.
Yeah.
And then one of the things on the point itself that I think is great, the lower level now is it's connected, correct?
Yep.
Is it? Let me see. Oh, you can go around in a circle.
I connected all of the ground. I don't know what you call this area. Don't look at that black wall. It's in progress. But it just connected all of this.
Oh,
like,
that's
together.
oh wow.
Right here, this used to exist. Like
yeah, there'd be like a block off. You get stuck.
But it was kind of an awkward spot. Like
Yep.
I feel like I would only go there if I was dying or something was very bad for me, and I was just kind of like, oh god.
And if you go into the wrong one, you're trying to run away, and there's actually not an exit.
Yeah, so
yeah, you get stuck. That's good. That's a good change.
Options for people to rotate around there, and so I start to see more fights on the point itself, which is nice because usually what would happen is people kind of
play the high ground.
Like it would just be like this kind of like push and pull from the high ground and low ground, and so there's just more options on the low ground.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, so
good choice. Adds more team fight opportunities and options. I love that.
Your mental map's a little better, I would say, because sometimes like you go in there and it feel like you should be able to.
Yeah, though you said they added the void thing there. Yeah, I know.
Like, the underground space didn't quite make sense how it fit together, and so I think this helps a lot.
I think
I agree.
Opening it up.
Your point to like I only go in there when things are really bad, like I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Is usually, and I usually always picked the wrong one, and I went, oh snap, I can't get out this way. Guess I'm gonna die.
Oh, and can we go to the ducks point now?
we'll make our way over there. Just, as we fly through, what were the big challenges what did you run into? What are some things you tried during this map in particular that were just harder or didn't work out?
Ducks is just...
this map is just kind of hard.
I know we saw this a little bit earlier, but like seeing it in like...
Big. If that makes sense. Basically, it's just like, there's just like so much competing information with each other, and I think it's just the nature of like...
The light and the point now.
The junk, and so kind of pushing the themes of everything a little bit more helped a lot. Like the goo with the sewers, which you look at, the bit, all the bombs, the bomb flats, like just kind of make the junkyard feel a little more like a junkyard. Because sometimes they blend together, and as you can see, too, we like push the colors a lot more. So like visually, you're like, oh, like this color is like distinct from other ones. But yeah, just like if you were in the streets between points, same thing with like Suravasa. Sometimes you'd be like, wait, am I on this side of the map or the other side of the map? And some people just get turned around or go through.
A little bit of a note, by the way. And again, I'm pausing because like obviously I have the ability to react to it a bit more now. One thing that's really cool about this that I love seeing is like with map bans coming to play, this is what map bans could end up leading to, right? So let's say that like there ends up being a bunch of banned maps because people don't like playing them. Maps are going to get like work-throughs like this now. And they kind of talked about that at the beginning of this of like, they're going to get data now for maps and they're going to be able to go and rework these maps now and make them so much better. And that's going to be such a good, like, for Overwatch, I feel like it's really good because now you're going to get maps that might even be pretty good, but just aren't being played a ton and need something changed, right? You know what map I can think of? And this is going to, I don't know if everybody agrees with this map. You know what map could get a couple of good rework changes? Think of a map like Route 66. I don't hate Route 66, right? I think it's a really cool map. I think there's some parts of that map that get a little bit scuffed at times, right? So like, So think of I think of a map like Route 66, right? Oh, no. Antarctic Peninsula? That map is going to be reworked already, guaranteed. I don't even have to mention that map. I'm just saying maps like that could get more like fine-tuned into them, right? Well, Route 66 got a slight rework when they did it. I'm just saying they could open more, right? Like rather than just like 2 adjustments. Like now they can go in and like if they're going to do changes like this, now you can make even more adjustments. Get rid of, maybe make things more open in some areas. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Route 66 is a bad map. I'm saying like if Route 66 never gets voted for, now you can see that they have much larger vision of what they can do to maps rather than before, right? That's what I'm saying, right? That's what I'm talking about. You said they should... Clash is probably being worked on, but probably in different ways, right?
Through the wrong door. And so we're just trying to, like, make these big, like, visual focal points in the sky. That,
Kings Row third point, yep.
You know exactly where to go to.
Every time I bring up Kings Row to Aaron, he goes, there's some things I want to change about Kings Row. And I'm like... Because Aaron made Kings Row, if you didn't know.
Like,
Aaron created Kings Row.
It's an entrance. It's not like a little door anymore.
All of the coloring and the lighting is fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's awesome. Our artists are great.
How about
Queen Noel? Thanks for the Prime sub. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Or some things you thought weren't working that you want to correct here?
So not a ton has been changed in this point. There's these little shops around point that basically I smoothed out. So I used to have these curved I used to have these curved ceilings with spikes on it, but visually I feel like it's kind of confusing.
I like that. I like this
round and spike. Like, can I jump? Like when you're on the ramp, you're like, can I jump up?
They didn't do a second stream of this. It's just I missed this yesterday, so I started to watch more.
You could, which is a little confusing. So just like simplify that geo so it's easier to read. Like when you're in a fight, you don't have to like measure how far you to jump as much with the curve.
It's good.
And then if you rotate the camera to the left a little bit,
very open.
A little bit more. I added the windows right there just as another place to kind of. Jump on the point, and so you're not.
Oh, I see.
Coming from the main entrance. Oh yeah.
So you don't get stuck.
I did this for a lot of the points too. If you look to the right a little bit, the side entrances just pull. The door is way higher. It's just like twice as big. Like I did that for like the sewer point as well. Just like boom, you can get it. You can get onto. I didn't change anything over here.
Just makes that read a little bit better from the streets.
Yeah, but it was just like. Well, also it's just like. Want players to get on the point. Just want you to get in there.
If you are that far out, you have to don't have to dip as low as you did previously.
Yeah, and so just
much more open. Much better point now.
Yeah.
Love it.
Have any other thoughts? I think there's one other point, but we do also have Atlas, so I do want to make sure that we're able to kind of talk Atlas.
Yeah, we'll do sewers real quick then.
Fantastic.
Yeah, could you go to the main entrance outside?
It's like a different map almost. You know.
It is really cool looking.
I agree. I think this is a good addition. This is wonderful.
Just made this a grand entrance. Made it really obvious because again, people come at like.
That's so much better because you get stuck in that little doorway chokes.
Go through like different. Like,
that's so much better
because nobody quite know what the optimal.
This is season 17 mid-season for this.
Grand entrance, and if you fly into the space a little more now.
Atlas is the new Flashpoint map, which they're going to show after this.
There's some like elevation changes here too, right? In terms of how,
this little room used to be a little tiny room.
Yeah.
The doors on each side way bigger. The door to the point way bigger. This whole room much larger. Basically wanted to make it an extension of the point itself instead of a little room attached to the point. And same with the room across. Like again, pull the doors way bigger. Because essentially it kind of felt a little dangerous to be over here. So
it's the health pack
like,
area. Yep.
Everything's just like way taller, much more open. Get people on the point, have more options.
Nice.
But yeah.
Love it.
Okay, was it me or did they change the floor of that point too? Like the color? Like I just want to point that out.
On the run through for New York Junk City. Really excited to see how community likes these reworks because I think they're awesome. But let's jump into our new Flashpoint map, Atlas. Would love you to kind of walk me through what were we trying to do with Atlas, or the lessons that we learned from the previous Flashpoint maps. Oh yes, nice, fantastic behind us.
Yeah, so like this is our third Flashpoint map, and when we do, one after we do the initial release of a mode, we want to make sure it's the culmination of things that we've learned over time. So I think the biggest thing with Atlas was navigation. Even starting on it early on, like the team was looking at, there's a lot more windy roads.
This is from yesterday. I wanted to watch the rest of it today.
It was a little bit harder to get onto each point, but we prioritize navigation with this map in particular through a variety of different ways, like looking at the angles of the streets and making sure they're like 45 or 90 degrees, and making sure it doesn't like kind of take you through this like journey that's a little circuitous, like, or just like going kind of in different ways. I think also the distinct points. Atlas kind of like always had very distinct points. That was something very early on the team was looking at and making sure they felt defined thematically. And I think they did a really good job. So, should we
let's go straight
get on it?
Let's
do it.
Go straight into the map.
That's a piano.
So this is a spawn room, correct?
Yep. Yeah. This is one of the spawn rooms. Got nice little things of the hookah lounge in here, just like nice and intimate, cool space.
Yes, that's Megan from chat. Yes.
And this is our.
Ooh.
This is a Morocco-inspired map. Well, it's not inspired. It's Marrakesh-inspired in Morocco.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is
looks
this
nice.
Awesome. It's just in general, it's way smaller than the other Flashpoint. It's just like much more compact. The run times between points and spawns and everything are just like way shorter. That's like one big thing that we learned from the other Flashpoint maps is we need to make those run times shorter. And
Good idea.
That's what we really focus on this map. So if you actually look behind you real quick, so this is really cool to me. This is how you get to the main point. You run through the space right here. But under the space, like if you could rotate and like look under you, it's probably not great directions. But
yeah, look under you.
But essentially, this is on top of the forward spawn, which is really cool.
Wait, the forward spawn's there?
The problem we had with Suravasa and New Junk City was our forward spawns were these huge buildings, and basically you had to run around the buildings, and that's what made the run times take a long time. So basically, our team integrated the forward spawns under the gameplay space right here. So if you like look down a bit,
yeah, there you go.
Like your forward
there's the
spawn's
spawn.
Right here. And so
that's an interesting take.
Basically enabled us to have
I like that.
The much shorter run times.
Yeah, so you can create the map to be.
This is just like an ingenious idea my team, my coworkers had, not me, my coworkers.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this first point. This one's really interesting because I feel like a lot of fighting actually happens on the elevation, and then
the map looks
big
nice.
Drop
Look at
on
that.
the point itself. So those first few fights, or that first opening fight at least, you're kind of like both teams are kind of like rotating around each other, trying to find that first pick, and then they can kind of, because that point's a big drop. Like,
okay, we got to look at the board. Any like hints at new maps on there? They always show Gothenburg on there. I wonder if that's eventually going to be the map finally.
How have you found this has worked out?
This is really cool. This was a really interesting design, in my opinion. Like this is the station point. This will be the first middle point that everybody fights at. This high ground is higher than we would normally.
You can't see anything there. See, I'm saying like some of the maps here. I'm just saying, yeah, next to Gothenburg it says delayed. I'm just saying maybe it's a teaser. Maybe it's a teaser.
Normally have around a point that's actually this close to the point itself, and I think that's what gives.
I say that, and Nambani's had that forever. So
when we have high grounds, they're usually further away from point, but it's like right on top of it.
Yeah, like that ledge right there is like right above the point.
Well, New York would be Midtown, right?
The high ground's gonna be really strong, but if your team's on the low ground, they can't really get a good angle on you, or they have to go to the other side, but it takes a while to rotate to the other side. So it's actually like you have an advantage like by holding the point at the bottom because you have a lot to rotate and work around down there. There's also basically entrances on every side of the map, like on the first floor and the second floor.
Yeah, I like this point. It'll be interesting to see how it plays.
Kind of slip in and out of the point like really easily, which is really cool.
I have found like if you are playing, a flanker in particular, like this is actually heaven.
Oh no,
you can just rotate all around.
If I'm up here and I'm having trouble, I can like duck around.
Could be a map name in the future, Iris. You know what I mean?
Entrance, and it just works like that because like to this entrance, we just have a ton of those, and it's reflected on the bottom as well, which is really cool.
This is so cool.
Yeah, I like it.
I also love the purple.
Oh yeah,
hits.
Oh yeah, the lighting was really important. This map actually was going to be in the daytime, but we really wanted to push just like the focal points, and we wanted to direct people with color a lot more. And so we tried out nighttime, which is really funny because everybody at first was like, I don't know if like it's gonna work.
Yeah.
But it came to, but like after playing it, we're like, okay, this is actually really cool, and feels really nice. So basically everything almost like glows with its own like unique colors and lighting. It's really
the colors
cool.
and the look of that is fantastic.
Yeah,
and it was a pretty late change. So kudos to the team for the ability to actually like get that in and make it look as pretty as it does. We might do the daytime lighting later on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like a
having the option
alternate, but we love the nighttime and just like how
I don't mind the nighttime one vibe right now.
Yeah.
That's
fine.
fine.
I like at each point where do I need to go, and that helps a lot because like these kind of like almost point lights at the top, or there's like big pillars of light on each point.
It's like the colors give that additional visual identity that we've been talking about, on top of everything else about the points that are also.
So what's this one? This is beautiful.
Well, actually, real quick, Kate, can you do a 180 and look at the resort real quick? And then if you do 180 again, and then look back at the garden.
Didn't we just start where we started?
Example of like how close the points are in this map compared to the other ones. Yeah. Like they're right
oh,
there.
You're showing the points. I get it.
And like the middle points are right here.
That's
so
way closer.
Like much closer, much tighter. Much like the visual identity of them, like we really wanted to pull out. So as you can see here, essentially the point aesthetic is super different, but we also pulled it all the way out to the street. So that's something we learned from the previous Flashpoint maps.
That's good.
Is like Suravasa, New Junk City, like they would have unique aesthetics and feeling on the point itself, but you couldn't really read that or see that from outside the point. And so basically it was really important for the team to essentially make them feel really unique and contrast from the street level. So like this is like pulled all the way out to the street.
So this is Garden Point?
Yep, this is Garden.
This is Garden.
Yeah. Playing this internally, there are so many angles you can take on this one.
Yeah.
I love the
Looks like it,
I love like all the aesthetic like in the back half of it too, just the water and the vegetation and everything. But how you're able to navigate this one, if you are a character of high mobility, has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like high mobility characters will like this point a lot. This map's really cool because one thing that we learned from old Flashpoint maps that we really wanted to push as well is we wanted every single point to feel very different from the others because sometimes we felt like we didn't have variety in some of the other ones, and so we really pushed it on this one.
Play style variety.
Yeah. So this one like feels really good for some heroes.
So one can feel like a King's Row while one can feel like a Dorado.
Just try to like switch it up for each point.
This one's kind of like a combo, I think, though, because you have not only do you have a lot of like options if you do have that mobility to wrap around, and there's a lot of different angles, There's also some like longer sight lines too, right?
yeah.
There's some like high ground like looks down into the point, so can do well here too as well.
Yeah.
I would say all of them are mixtures of that, but then we kind of like push and pull a little bit, like for certain heroes and certain.
I have to see how it plays because like I just don't. It looks great though.
One would be in particular.
It looks great.
Definitely mobility, but also like when designing all these, we want to give enough cover and we want to give enough to play around for your brawl tanks as well.
For a second, I thought this was a giant baseball helmet. You know, everybody like to do a baseball game and they give you like ice cream and like a baseball helmet, or like obviously when someone's batting at. I just thought that's what it was for a second. No, like the little like look at the water and then look at the. I know it's like a thing for the water to come out of and all that. I just at first I'm like, wait a second, what is this?
Area at the walls, like you actually like pretty safe in here. Like at first I was thinking like, oh, like Junker Queen like might not be that tough here, but like with these
a lot of cover.
Yeah, like a lot of cover here, like rotating around this pillar. Like if you're defending center point, you have a lot to run around. And then also she's pretty strong like near the doors as well, because it's like much more like tight knit near the entrances and exits to the point. We got frogs.
Frogs.
Guys. Yeah.
Which I had.
Doing a little dance.
That's amazing.
Fun fact. I think they were one of our developers, Taki, had made some frogs for a rainy day skin that we didn't use, and looks like we got to reuse the little guy
I love it.
on the map. So we got some.
Thank you for this. This was a good addition. I already love this map. I'm in.
I love it. Love his little dance.
I'm already in. You could. This map could literally play worse than New Junk City right now, and I'd still love this map.
It's a good if you look up.
You know?
There's another little frog.
Hey, he found his spot. Okay.
He's good. He's like, I'm staying out of the way.
But sorry, what I was gonna say is like the umbrella, like if you look up, like that's an example of we wanted you to see exactly where each point was. Like, it's like we know a lot of people aren't gonna look up often when they're playing the game, but it's just like a nice visual, like. You can see everything from.
I think it's cool to add cool visuals to the game.
Why don't we actually like?
I've learned this.
Yeah, it's one of the ones.
I was gonna ask. I was like, what is the?
It's a pretty
umbrella?
interesting one in terms of. It was probably the toughest one to get right, I would say.
Yeah, this one was interesting. I remember
Which one's this?
Test. It was kind of a lot of push and pull, and it didn't feel quite right, and like it always felt like favor towards one type of hero. Than the other, but I think we came to like a nice spot.
So what's the name of this point?
This is Town Center.
Town Center.
So this and the Bazaar, which we'll look at a little later, is cool because this is our like old town aesthetic where we wanted to have like really a lot of the old like Morocco like feel to it. We want to have like the textiles, like the stonework come through. Whereas the resort, which you'll also see later, and the gardens, which we just looked at, are more of like the modern like Overwatch.
I mean, this is cool. It's kind of like. To give you an idea, it's kind of like, you know, like when like certain towns have like downtowns and they have a much like older vibe sometimes because like that's where like the town started or like the town is, you know what I mean? So it's kind of cool to have that where like the city center is like an older school vibe, right?
So these ones are feel like much more old.
Yep. It's a good idea.
Yeah. The thing that's challenging about this point, if we actually just like go on to it, is the point itself is kind of encased in this building.
Yeah.
So to get onto this point and actually cap it can be, you know, it's a big commit, right?
Yeah.
Wait, that's the point right
this
there?
Interesting too, because like this is the one I would say is like probably
you're giving up a lot of
more,
map
like,
control for that. That's something.
Then others like we still have like some high ground and some like sight lines for like poke comps to kind of use, but I would say that this is pretty like nice to be like a Ryan or Junker Queen and just kind of run around and beat people up around the pillars. But yeah, this was cool because
I want to see how this plays.
Basically,
I like one of the Junkrat like have a good time in there.
Good.
You know what I mean?
And it's just kind of like playing around with.
Maybe that's what he was talking about when he said heroes.
That encased area and trying to figure out like what feels good for
you know.
point.
Yeah, it had to get opened up quite a bit. I think the doorways were a little bit more closed in previously, and just like more space overall around it. It's still one. I think its identity is one of the strongest ones in terms of how you have to play around it, though.
It's really interesting because that's what we were really focusing on. Well, I say we, but my coworkers worked on this map, but it was like it's a team effort. But we really focus on it in our play test, and we really talk about like, hey, what comps work, and we want to make sure that like, hey, if I'm like Ash, like does this feel good, or is this like favorite the brawl a little too much? And at the end of the day, we want to create like really interesting.
Sim would be pretty good if you can take
really
it, yeah.
Interesting play spaces that feel different and unique, and we try to push it a lot for this point.
Yeah.
I also see all of where you're talking about like having those tall entrances and like where you're like, okay, this is the sight lines, this is where you go. All of those,
by default bigger. Like all doors, all hallways, everything's just bigger by default. Just that's something that we learned from the old Flashpoint maps as well.
Yeah, it's good.
Is there another point this way?
Yeah, so if we can probably go to the bazaar now.
Bazaar. Whenever I think of bazaar, I think of WoW. There used to be a zone called the Grand Bazaar. Is that am I thinking of the right one?
This point,
yeah.
Oh, I love this jump pad.
Oh, dude. So okay,
Yes,
you gotta love jump pads, right?
We love jump pads, but this is funny because it's.
I love that he said that. That's great.
I feel like at first we're kind of like we don't want people to have big fights outside the point like this. Like I'm kind of.
It happens around this structure.
I was gonna say, I was say I'm going against my word a little bit. Like normally it's just like we don't want people to fight out here.
Yeah.
But
except for here.
People like fighting on the space so much.
Really?
That it just like stayed in there. And like with the jump pad, it's just
like jumping up, jumping down.
I'll take a jump pad on this map.
It's a really fun space to fight in, and you don't have to fight in it. So if like you get annoyed, you're like, I'm going in the point, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like an optional, like your teams can choose to fight out here type of thing. It's it's pretty cool. But
well, rank street set for Stadium in season 17, yes.
Okay, how has the point played internally? Because you're talking about everybody likes to play on the outside. How is this point played?
Actually like
another one.
It's one of those things where like sometimes people fight out front, but like oftentimes people get in here and fight. This is a really cool point because if we look
I like that. It kind of reminds me of
here, so you have a high ground.
You know, one Suravasa. It's like different, but like it's like very similar in a way.
Like a unique shape where
the one with the coast side and the health pack on the outside.
Like this underground recessed area.
Yeah, it reminds me of that one a little bit, which is one of the better points on Suravasa.
You also have this high ground that's not too.
Ooh, a low ground to go with it. Okay.
Mobile heroes like BAP and things like that can jump up
and down, up and down.
Yeah, nice. So like the three levels to it, I think is actually really interesting.
Yeah, that adds a lot to it. I like that.
I think what happens here the most more than any of the other points on Atlas is the full point gets utilized.
Okay.
That's kind of
you have to play the high grounds. Yep.
On this one, it's like someone's gonna be in the high ground on the back, someone's gonna be high ground on the front, someone's gonna be like the side entrance coming down, surprise you from the bottom.
Yeah, it's cool.
It can be really, really engaging.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Every point has a different vibe to it too. Oh, it looks similar, but it'll play. I agree, it plays differently because you have 3 layers there. Absolutely, will play differently
as they've come in. Yeah.
And then we have one more point. Am I counting correctly? Yep. Okay.
We'll go to the resort, which is our
beautiful point.
The resort. I mean, it's called the resort, so.
Point. This cool little globe.
Ooh.
Is that a separate town center? Town center seems like it could be.
This one feels again like really different than the other points as well.
Yep. I'm ready to see.
Very resort, modern-esque. Like you see the giant sails above the point from like really far away. It's like really. That's the other thing. It's just like really easy to identify these points from far away. Like we're going to the resort, and it's just like, oh, okay. Like I know which one that is. You can see it from many different angles.
Yeah, and the gameplay on this one's also a little different too. You know, on the point itself, there's these 2 big pillars that kind of like dictate a lot of like the cover on the point.
I like it.
And then you still, just like we just saw in the bazaar, there's like that back area.
I love that cool vibe right there.
That can
look at that.
Allow a lot of different heroes to play in different places.
Yeah. So
every point is definitely different in how it feels. Like it looks.
We have this high ground in the back, and it's like a lot of high ground.
Yep.
It's at the back, but you're pretty exposed. There's not a lot of cover back here. And then we have the 2 giant pillars in the middle for people to play around.
Looks great.
And this is just, and then you have like the staircase back there, so you can kind of dip it. Like if you're on the main point, you can kind of go back and go up the stairs and kind of get up to the people on the sides.
Yep.
And then the sides here that kind of connect towards the main entrance. And so this one just like, has a really unique feeling to it. And this is
I feel like any hero that can boop is gonna love this part of the map.
Fights happen in different spots like every single time we fight on this map. Like sometimes it happens like where the big waterfall is like in the big room over there in the back rooms up there. People fight a lot. Sometimes they fight in like the back edges, and sometimes people fight on the point itself. It's like very, very unique in that way.
I love the wood panel kind of feel.
Yeah,
like
awesome.
Really,
oh wait,
really
is it
nice.
No,
main on that one? That's funny.
Yeah, this bar at the top is gorgeous. Look at that view. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Who would not want to sit there? Yes.
I like that.
Now this point,
it's a good view.
I think it also just feels like color-wise really easy to identify, not only from the outside, but also just like I think the lighting on it really highlights all the heroes really well.
I agree.
Oh yeah, I love how the the nighttime lighting came together. It really gives everything a stronger identity.
So
I like
what
it.
would you say, you know, moving through Atlas, like where some of those lessons learned with, you know, we're trying to do a better job of navigation in terms of highlighting grand entrances.
Speaking before they talk about this, one thing I want to say, like, is I like that their philosophy is not like keeping the same blueprint for each map. It's learning from the previous map to make a better map, right? And obviously, like, you would think that, but like sometimes you can get kind of in that, like, you know, that let's just keep things very consistent with how we do that. And I like that because I mean, I'm not gonna say everybody loves Runasapi, but I can give you my point of view. They always talked about how Runasapi was, you learned it from the previous push maps, right? And I would say Runasapi is one of the better push maps. And then you look at the previous push map, Esperanza, which I also thought was a really good push map, which they learned from the previous two push maps. So it's like, you can kind of see that trajectory of where they go with maps as they learn more. So like if you look at like New Queen Street and Coliseo, those are the first two push maps. They introduced Esperanza. Esperanza was, they learned from it. It played better, and then they made Runasapi, and Runasapi plays better, and it's really good, right? So now you're seeing that with Flashpoint. They rework their maps, and they learn from it, and they make a smaller Flashpoint with a different vibe. But I love that the route they're going with that, like with all their maps. It's really cool to see. You know what I mean?
So just like
they're basically progressing off of what they've already done and making it better.
Where do you find fights are happening more? Are they happening more on points? How's this map playing out overall?
You still see fights happen on the way to points, but I would say that you would see that more with teams that choose to do so, which I think we're fine with that happening.
Like holding forward more or something?
Yeah, which is fine, but like what we don't want happening is teams that don't want to fight in the middle and it's kind of getting picked off and things like that. So just since the routes to like each point are like so much, like it's way closer. I don't have the exact numbers, but like
it's clearly closer.
Many seconds, like quicker, many meters closer. Everything's just like way smoother.
Probably easier to make a Flashpoint map if they make it smaller too, right?
It's just like boom, make them
less to like have to put in there and more to work on like making each point feel effective.
Yeah, a lot of fun to see it get developed, but this map is coming out, you know, very soon.
This map comes out next week.
I haven't played it yet. What are some heroes you think would work well here?
Junkrat.
I mean, everybody does.
Everybody does.
It's a cop-out answer, but like, it's nice.
What are we commonly seeing though? You know?
I mean, you can play whoever you want. I see like Lucio's have like a ton of fun on here.
It's a very fun Lucio map.
Yeah, because you can boop people
map.
a lot.
For like, at first I was like, like that's one of the things too. Like we test out like brawl comps a lot as well. So like you have a lot of options for brawl comps. So some of like the longer sight lines and things.
I think Junkrat City Center
a lot more. Like for the resort map, we had the two big pillars and then like the stairs in the back. You can kind of push people on. And you can kind of like rush a lot of those spots. So I'd say like it's pretty viable for most people, which kind of the goal for us to kind of
awesome.
leave it open like that.
Do you have like any final thoughts, either one of you, on Atlas specifically?
I think Flashpoint's really come a long way, and I'm really excited to see how Atlas does and how these reworks do. I think just taking all the feedback from all the players has really helped shape these maps and how you navigate between them, and hopefully players aren't getting picked off, and there's not as many stragglers. So we're excited to see like how these play out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Cool.
And kind of going back to the reworks.
Elia, thanks for the 24 months of the Prime. So thank you. Thank you.
We're reworking these maps because we want.
I don't think so,
like our maps.
Jams, but maybe.
Like them all to play better. No. And like that's the awesome thing with like the map voting system is like we get that data. Like if you don't like a map, we want to fix the maps and we want to do more reworks in the future. And so we're looking forward to doing much more of that.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, first of all, can you change and fix Winton's glasses?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'll got it. It was really important. It was really important.
That was important. Thank you for that, Megan.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Super appreciate everybody that's been here and watching. Just double checking. Final thoughts, Alec, George?
Yeah, we want to do these. We want to do more of these.
Yes.
We want to get your feedback on
do more of
how
these.
This went. For what we want to do with these live streams, we want to break down things, give it more detailed, have a more casual environment. So hopefully you enjoyed this and let us know what you want us to talk about next time.
Yeah, do more of those. I like
Absolutely.
that.
George, any other final thoughts?
No, I mean, this was a lot of fun. Like, I would say devs and like a lot of us in general like talking about our work and kind of getting nerdy about like, this is why we did this or that.
I love that.
And so like, it's fun. Like, we would love doing more of these, like the rest of the team. So I agree.
Hype. Just want to call out, in case you guys didn't know, Season 17 starts on Tuesday.
Yep.
And as a reminder, all of the cool map reworks, those are coming at mid-season. Atlas that we just went through, that will be available to run through and play starting on Tuesday. And then the reworks will be a bit later. But thank you guys so much. And hope to see you guys again in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
Heck yeah.
Bye.
Have a good one.
That was great. Honestly, well done. I hope they do more of those. That was really well done. And no, this wasn't like pre-recorded. They did this live yesterday. So I hope they do more of those. I actually saw when I was at PAX, Warframe did something like this. And I think apparently it's like really like huge in the Warframe community of like doing these dev updates. Like I think they do one like every week or like they do a major one every month. And people love them. People like, they swarm to the stream. They get really cool updates. They get to kind of know the devs more. So I really liked this, right? So I think that was a really cool thing. I think that was really, really like well done, and like I hope they do more of those. Really, really good like feedback to them on that one. That was really cool. That was really cool.